Hello everybody, I hope you are doing good. In this video, we will be talking about the redemption of the preference shares, including the buyback of the equity shares. So let us just dive into the video. First of all, what is the redemption of the preference shares? The redemption of the preference shares refers to the process where a company repays the amount originally received from the issue of the preference shares to the shareholders. The preference shares typically have the fixed dividend and are redeemable after a certain period. Now, the types of preference shares. The preference shares are basically of the two types, the redeemable preference shares and the irredeemable preference shares. The shares that can be bought back by the company after a specified period is known as the redeemable preference shares. However, the shares which cannot be bought back after during the lifetime is known as the irredeemable preference shares. What are the conditions for the redemption? Number one is the sources of fund. The redeemable preference shares can be redeemed out of the profits, the fresh issue, and the capital redemption reserves. Profits which are available for the distribution as a dividend, fresh issue proceeds from the fresh issue of the shares, and the capital redemption reserve, that is a reserve created for the redemption of the shares. Okay. Now, no redemption at discount. The shares cannot be redeemed at the price lower than their nominal value. There is the fully paid shares. Only the fully paid preference shares can be redeemed. Then is the solvency declaration, a declaration by the company's directors that the company is solvent. Then the procedure for redemption, that is the board resolution. Pass a resolution in the board meeting authorizing the redemption of the preference shares. General meeting is required. Obtain the approval from the shareholders if the article of the association or the legal requirements necessitate it. Then public issue. Issue a public notice regarding the redemption of the preference shares if required by the law. Then is the sources of the fund. Ensure the availability of the funds either through the profits, fresh issue of the shares, or other permissible sources. Create the capital redemption reserve or the CRR. Transfer an amount equal to the nominal value of the redeemed shares from the profits to the CRR if the redemption is done out of the profits. Then make a payment to the preference shareholders as per the agreed terms. Then let us talk about the accounting entries for the redemption. For that, we'll open our Word document. And accounting entries for redemption of preference shares. First of all, we'll talk about the redemption out of the profits. First of all, create a CR, which is the capital redemption reserve. Okay. Profit and loss account debit. Debit to capital redemption reserve account. Okay. This amount is transferred to the CR, and this will be the general entry. Next up, redeem the shares. redeem the shares. How it is done? Preference share capital account debit to bank account. Okay. After that, we'll come to second step, that is the redemption out of rash issue. For that, issue the new shares. And the general entry would be bank account debit account debit to equity share capital account to securities premium account. Okay. After that, redeem those shares. When you are redeeming those shares, the entry would be preference share capital account debit to bank account. Okay. This will be the entry at the time of redeeming. अगर हम out of the profit redeem करते हैं तो सबसे पहले we will create a CRR and then we will transfer it our profit. After that, if we are doing out of the fresh issue, तो मतलब in the case, in the absence of preference shares, we will going to issue what the new equity shares, that bank to equity share capital to security premium, and after that we will redeem all the shares we have. Okay. Now, what will happen if we do the buyback shares? In the case of the buyback of the shares, the buyback of the equity shares refers to the process where the company repurchases its own equity shares from the shareholders, reducing the number of shares in the circulation. Conditions for buyback. Sources of funds. The buyback can be financed out of the free reserve, securities premium, and proceeds of the fresh issue. Surplus profits available for the distribution as dividend. premium collected on the issue of the shares, and issuance of the new shares. What are the limits on the buyback? The buyback must not exceed 25% of the total paid up equity share capital and the free reserves in the financial year. मतलब एक फाइनेंशियल ईयर में 25% of the things or the 25% of the shares can be buyback. Then it is the debt equity ratio. Post buyback, the debt equity ratio should not exceed 2:1. That is the ideal debt equity ratio. Fully paid up shares. Only the fully paid up shares can be bought back. Half paid, forfeited cannot be bought back. And for the buyback of the shares, the approval by the special resolution in the general meeting if the buyback exceeds 10% of the total paid up share capital and the free reserve. So, what are the procedures for the buyback? Board resolution. Firstly, you will pass a board resolution in the board meeting authorizing the buyback. After that will be the shareholders' approval. Obtain the shareholders' approval through the special resolution if required. Then make the public announcement. Make a public announcement specifying the details of the buyback. Then make an offer letter. Issue an offer letter to the shareholders specifying the buyback terms. Acceptance and the settlement. Accept the shares tendered by the shareholders and make a payment. Then extinguish the shares. Cancel and extinguish the bought back shares within the 7 days of the buyback. Then we'll talk about the accounting treatment of the buyback. So let us just talk about the accounting treatment of the buyback. First of all, we'll do one thing, that is financing the buyback from free reserves or securities premium. Or for that, you will first transfer to the capital redemption reserve if required. You will transfer the amount in the capital redemption reserve if required. For that, free reserves slash securities premium account या तो फ्री रिजर्व या फिर सिक्योरिटीज premium will be debited. Debited to capital redemption reserve account. What is happening? We are transferring the securities premium account amount to the CRR. Okay. Next up, we'll follow the process of buyback. We will follow the process of buyback. That is equity share capital account debit. Securities premium account debit to bank account. Will be to the bank. After that, let us talk about this thing. Buyback out of the fresh issue. Now, what will happen if we have to do the buyback from the fresh issue? Issue new shares. We will issue the new shares. How? Bank account debit to equity share capital to securities in. The next step will be the next step we'll talk about the buyback. Once you issue the new shares, you will buy back the old ones. And how to buy back equity share capital account debit? This entry will be reversed. Basically, this entry will be reversed. So equity share capital account debit. Securities premium account debit to bank account at the time of buyback. Now just let us take an example of redemption of preference shares. That is the example. A company decides to redeem the shares out of the profits which are fully paid up. So first thing that they will do is they will transfer solution. First thing they will do is they will transfer to CRR. What will be general entry? Profit and loss account debit to capital redemption reserve account. What will be the amount? The amount will be 10 lakhs because how many shares they are asking? They are asking for 10,000 shares. Each costing rupees 10. Then the 10,000 multiplied by 10. Amount has been transferred to the CRR. Okay. After that, redemption of shares. Then you redeem the share. What is this? This is the preference share capital account debit to bank account. 10,000 multiplied by 10 and same. 10,000 multiplied by 10. Okay. You have also transferred and then you have redeemed. After that, let us just take another example for the buyback. This was the example for redemption. Example for redemption. And now, next is the example for buyback. In the time of the buyback, a company decides to buy back 1,000 equity shares of rupees 100 each at rupees 150 per share. The buyback is funded from the free reserves. ठीक है, फ्री रिजर्व से बायबैक फंड किया जा रहा है. दैट मीन्स द बायबैक ऑफ शेयर्स इक्विटी शेयर कैपिटल काउंट डेबिट सिक्योरिटीज प्रीमियम अकाउंट डेबिट टू बैंक. Equity share capital will be 1,000 into and securities premium amount will be 1,000 into 50 and the bank account will be 1,000 into 150. After that, if it is required, we need to transfer to CR. In this case, we have the free reserves of rupees 1 lakh. Why? Because we bought back the equity share capital. That means this is a free reserve now. We have the money, additional money. And free reserves account debit to capital redemption reserve account. That is 1,000 multiplied by 10. And 1,000 multiplied by, sorry, it is not 10, it is actually 100. I'm sorry. This 100. And it is 50. And that's it. Now let us drive towards the conclusion that the redemption of the preference shares and the buyback of the equity shares are the mechanism used by the companies to manage their capital structure and return the surplus funds to the shareholders. These processes require the compliance with the specific legal and the regulatory requirements, careful planning, and precise accounting to ensure the transparency and maintain the financial stability. I hope you have understood the concept of the redemption of the preference shares, including the buyback of the equity shares. Thank you so much.